So my Substack today is about chaos and how chaos is utilized in order to create the parameters and the need for an authoritarian takeover. And we're looking at how this particular administration is dealing with our cities and specifically how they are creating conditions in the cities that are going to either lead the federal government to want to come in and take over cities, as we're seeing happen in a number of cities, or they're going to create the conditions in which people in the cities feel so overwhelmed by all of the chaos that's been created by the administration that they just give up and stop pushing back and stop fighting. This tactic is not new. We have seen it throughout history, and we've certainly seen it in recent decades with Orban in Hungary and Erdogan in Turkey, and now we're seeing this administration do it. So I'm going to talk about two things here. One is the creation of chaos in our cities, and then I'm going to talk about how they wear people down over time. So let's start with chaos. We have right now in major cities across the country, but certainly with a focus on a handful of them right now, it's Boston and Chicago. Before that, it was DC. Before that, it was LA, where you have unmarked vehicles coming into neighborhoods that are primarily poor and minority neighborhoods. They're jumping out of these unmarked vehicles with masks on their faces, abducting people off the streets, which scares the hell out of people. And rightfully it should. That is not how we are accustomed to having our law enforcement act in this country. So what does that chaos do? That chaos scares people, but it also allows the administration to paint in the news media that there is all this chaos in the cities, and it's going to eventually need military intervention, the federal government to come in and quell the chaos in the cities. But the chaos was created by the administration itself. But they can't just break the cities. They also have to wear down everybody else, the suburbs, the exurbs, the rural areas. And they're going to do this in two ways. One is by making significant cuts to programs, and the other is in creating conditions that have us lose faith in our institutions. So let's start first with budget cuts. We're already seeing significant budget cuts to our schools with the essential dismantling of the Department of Education. There are programs in our public schools that are funded with federal funds. As those funds disappear, it's going to make it more and more difficult for the schools to be able to meet those needs without having to take from other programs, which means you're going to see larger class sizes. You may see a reduction in certain activities or programs in your school district. And that's because federal funds for things like special education and school lunches are largely disappearing. So that's the first thing. They make those kind of cuts. They're also making cuts to housing programs, which means you're going to see more people in your community that are homeless, and there's nothing we can do to help them because the subsidies that used to help them pay their rent have disappeared. And lastly, the loss of faith in institutions. When you put a quack like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in charge of Health and Human Services, in charge of America's medical establishment, you're basically saying, we want you to not believe any of the experts anymore because we've gotten rid of the actual experts and the scientists and the doctors, and we put in place quacks and conspiracy theorists. So they're trying to make sure that we no longer have faith in the institutions that are going to be making recommendations to us. So in the coming months, we're going to see outbreaks in school districts in states like Florida that no longer require any kind of vaccinations. We're already seeing a measles outbreak in the United States. So we have to keep in mind that there is an intentional method of creating chaos that this administration is engaging in. And they're doing it by going into our cities right now and making people live in fear, and by making significant cuts to programs and putting wackos in charge of programs we used to rely upon in order to make us lose faith in government. And when those things happen, when those conditions are just right, then they can step in and do an authoritarian takeover, because we've already been told many times, only Donald Trump can fix this. Which, of course, is bullshit. You know it, I know it, the rest of America knows it, but we just have to hang tight, keep up the resistance.